some of these, because sometimes the most interesting stuff comes from supplementary questions or asides and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I am interviewing Emily. I still don't know how to pronounce your name.
Van Lidth.
Jeude.
Van Lidth Jeude. It's actually much simpler than you think. Yeah.
And Emily has asked not to be on the camera because she finds it distracting, and that's just fine. She's not the first person to ask that, but I promise she is here with me.
Hi.
So thank you, Emily, for agreeing to be one of our interviewees. And I'm going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about what you do for a living and for recreation, including the types of artistic and cultural activities that you participate in.
Earning a financial living honestly doesn't really happen for me. I technically make the money I do make by teaching. And I say teaching because that's how I put it for government forms and stuff. But I actually lead a program called Wild Art, which is basically participant-led exploration of the wilderness and various art pursuits. And
mostly for children and hopefully soon for adults too.
Hey, I'm offering things for adults right now.
Great.
Yeah, generally I tend to focus on the wide age group that my kids are in. So right now it's about ages 8 till 15. Mm-hmm. But I always have something going for adults and various other things. And
so you are
Sorry.
That's fine.
You got it.
That's happened at least 6 times in these interviews I've done so
That's
far.
it? Yep. At least you have a nice recording of our rotary ring.
Exactly.
For posterity.
It is. That's very rare. So you are yourself a visual artist.
Yeah.
You are, because I've seen your visual art. I've seen you've done film.
I do anything that suits my purpose in the moment, basically.
You are a writer. And I actually like your writing, from what I've seen and heard thus far, better than when you did that reading. It was just like, that was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I write a lot.
Hard for a lot of people to, because what you were writing about was pretty heavy stuff. But very powerful.
I feel like, I was talking about how I consider myself to be, active, making money, basically. Mm-hmm. But that isn't really my passion truly, truly in life is to reach people, which is both things that I do, both art and running wild art programs or similar programs. Mm-hmm. For people, all of it is reaching people and opening some pathway for them to see something new, or mostly what I really want is for people to discover about themselves, to discover new ways of moving forward themselves, Mm-hmm. So for wild art, it is that, absolutely, and I am so passionate about it. And speaking of writing, I write about that all the time because I happen to be very lucky and have a popular blog and people read it all over the place. So mm-hmm. I feel like, I can reach these 10 kids or whoever I brought on some outing for one day. And I'm sure I've made a bigger impact in their lives than I have on one person who read the article. But through the article writing, I reach people all over the world mm-hmm. who just randomly decide to try similar things. And then I know they're reaching themselves or other people,
Yep.
So it's kind of...
Yeah, my friend who's an unschooled and unschooling person,
uh-huh.
I referred her to your stuff, and she's read quite a bit of the stuff that you've written.
Oh, cool.
She's also written a book on unschooling, which I should...
Really?
I should get you a copy of sometime.
Can you write her name down or something?
I absolutely will, yeah. P.S. Pirro.
That actually sounds slightly familiar. Is she from around here?
No, she's in the Midwest of Indiana or someplace like that.
Does she have a blog or something? I just wonder, maybe I've seen it.
Yeah. I may have referred you to her once before when we were nattering about unschooling stuff. So you do fiction and nonfiction?
Yeah, I do every kind of
Sorry, I hate to talk about the categories, but
Okay, categories. Everything I do. I do performance art. I
mhm,
sing, but mostly not. I have actually. I did write a whole suite of songs and perform that as one of my installation projects once,
mhm,
but not generally because I'm really a terrible singer. But
mhm,
but I'm a totally avid traditional singer, so
right.
I do that kind of in separate circles, in the
Mhm,
traditional circles where people don't really care if you sing very well, for the most part.
yep.
Um, and I'm a printmaker and a painter and a
All right.
drawer, all
Printmaker.
of those things. Uh,
Right. Remind me because I want to talk to you a little bit about printmaking. Because
okay.
I think you're the first printmaker that we've interviewed so far.
Oh well, I can lead you to some others if you're interested
I'm sure you can.
on Bowen.
Great. Yeah.
um,
I don't know if you've seen our video, but we actually have, as part of our video on the culture plan, we actually have a still of the printmakers group.
oh,
So yeah.
good.
So I'm sure we have others on the list already, even though they may not have
Well,
been
yes, because they
interviewed
would
yet.
most of them be in that group. So.
I bet they would.
um,
All right.
I don't.
So
Oh,
we
I'm an
could.
installation artist though, and
Okay.
an activist. That I
All
would
right.
say are two kind of all-encompassing themes. You know.
Say more. So an installation artist. How do you define that?
Basically, that's kind of part of the reason that I have so many different categories, because everything I do, whether in teaching or in presenting art of any type,
Mm-hmm.
is intended to um, just to give people a place to think and to move through their own experience, which is why I completely abhor artist statements, especially writing them myself, because they, it takes away whatever your experience is as a viewer, and I don't
Right.
want that. I mean, the whole thing I want is for people to have their own experience. I can paint, say, a picture of a woman, and it could be something so different for so many people. And as soon as I put my meaning onto it, yes, it might reach some people whose meaning was the same as mine. And it completely excludes everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I don't like. Like, can I say a little story? Or are we on a time frame here?
We are, but it's not fixed. So sure. Yeah.
Well, the woman's story show that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Someone from our community, who I won't mention because that might not be fair of me, a nice guy who I don't really know very well, an older man, he came in and kind of perused around the show. And then he sat down and he was completely silent for a very, very long time. And I came and sat with him eventually because he'd been there for a long time. And I said, "Oh, hi, how are you?" or something. He said, "Well, I'm just waiting for someone. I'm not here because I like the show." And I said, "Oh, well, that's fine." Anyway. And he said, "I don't know why you would paint women like this. I don't know why you would do this. Why would you be so insulting?" And he was clearly
Wow.
angry.
Hmm.
And a lot of people come in and say, "Oh, why, sort of things like that," but they don't usually seem that angry. And I didn't want to provoke him or anything, so I kind of didn't say anything, but he kept coming out with a little more. And then finally he said, um, I have seen the photos that came out of Buchenwald, I think he said. Some concentration camp. I'm pretty sure
Right.
it was Buchenwald. And these women, they look like them because they have no hair.
Wow.
And he had said all kinds of things first. Why
Yeah.
why would you paint them so ugly? Why wouldn't you just paint women so beautiful? And
So he was just triggered.
yeah, and I thought, well, I was trying to understand, how could you? And I have respect for this guy.
Yeah.
It didn't seem right that he honestly was so shallow as his comments seemed to be until he
Mm-hmm.
said that, and I thought,
All of a sudden.
wow,
Yeah.
it had never ever occurred to me
Yeah.
that it could be seen that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sorry. I think he was really angry that I had done it, and I do think he was upset about the fact that I had done it. And I honestly don't regret having done it. But you see, if he came in and I had a whole bunch of information about what my perspective was, that wouldn't have been there.
Right.
And that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
How just vastly different it was then, and similar in other ways, to what I was portraying.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
But
Sidetrack.
but back to the installation. I mean, what's your definition of an installation artist as distinct from any other kind?
So basically, I take a space. I guess this actually isn't even because of where I want to go with something, but I just like to work this way that
Mm-hmm.
I always see the whole of everything.
Right.
You know, not even just visually, but I think about the sound and the feeling and the smells and everything about wherever I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And like even the how it's going to look over time, how it'll change, how people move through it. All those
Mm-hmm.
things just matter so much to me that I would rather deal with the whole space as a piece of art or an experience,
Right.
rather than just bring something somewhere and put it down.
So
So
create your own space instead of just using the space that currently exists.
exactly.
Back to context, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
end up doing all kinds of different things because once I get in there, I think, ooh, I could do costuming. Oh, I could do masks. I don't know. I'm just randomly saying things now, but
And you do.
yeah. Well, they just sort of everything I end up doing is just because it seems right in that context in that moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. You also said that you were an activist, and that sounds almost like an artist's statement.
Yeah.
So
But
elaborate. Where is the intersection, the overlap, the synergy
to
between?
me, it's the same thing. Like, some people are an activist because they have a cause they care about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, but I have a lot of them. And it's more that's how I live. It's just, I think we should all be activists. I think we should all be wanting to just be out there and being aware all the time and being active about the things that we think need to be, made right or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily always made right, but even just exposed or something,
Okay, great.
It's
Thank you.
kind of broad.
No,
Sorry.
that's very articulate. Thank you. So, story time. One of your most memorable cultural or artistic experiences, either as a performer or audience member, on both.
So I was glad you sent the email with the questions already because I was thinking of all kinds of things and I couldn't decide on one, and then I realized this story. It's not much of a story actually, but it was the first Bowfest that I remember. And it was so important to me because I was small, like probably I'm guessing 6 or something like that. It was important because I realized that our whole community was so rich and that we could do whatever we wanted. Bowfest used to be completely different than it is now. It was a 2-day picnic.
Mm-hmm.
It was free. Anybody could just come and basically do whatever they wanted. And I remember that we brought my mom's lumberjack, and this may even be a different Bowfest, but I remember playing lumberjack with, I think, Adam Taylor or somebody else who wasn't that old either at the time, although he's older than I am, but maybe it wasn't him. I can't remember who. But just random people that I never would have expected this kind of
Mm-hmm.
artistic character of.
Right.
To come in and do these things. And my uncle, well, 2 uncles and an aunt and various people were also here from various other places. And they had No Mean Feet, Cameron Stewart. He came in and called a circle dance, probably a square dance also, and my uncles and aunt and everybody all played, or maybe just my uncles, one of my uncle's bands or something. They all played, but the whole island wasn't obviously the whole island, but it was a lot of people seemed to be there dancing. There were kids on bikes running around, there were dogs, it was all just loose and really, really rich.
Right.
And I remember feeling just so free and happy,
Yeah.
And it's
All
pretty
of,
simple, but
we talk about arts. Our working definition of the arts for this plan is the expression of our culture, which is what we believe, what we want, what we care about, And it sounds like that is exactly what was going on in a kind of completely unorganized or self-organized manner. It's this expression of our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like I should have said something that was more deep, or I don't know. But I do think that it made a huge difference in my life. But those sorts of things that happen all the time make such a difference to who we are as a community, and to how we're able to be as artists in all our different disciplines, and even those people who don't consider themselves artists,
Right, sure.
Yeah.
All right, so what is the greatest challenge that you face as an artist on Bowen?
Specifically because of Bowen, or just generally?
No, just in general.
Yeah. Generally?
Yeah.
Finances, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it is really, really difficult. Actually, this does relate to Bowen. It is, I hate to say this because I don't want to be anywhere else. But because I'm on Bowen, I can't get out and make the connections in the city that I would have to make in order to, I have never shown in Vancouver. I've shown in Victoria, Sunshine Coast, Washington, but I cannot show in Vancouver because I can't get into the scene there, which I'm a really shy person anyway, so it's really hard regardless. Right. But it's especially hard if you can't get home without, missing half the event and still just being on the water taxi.
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
That's really hard. And so, Bowen, in order to be really kind of known here, I would have to have a style, keep painting the same thing, and make sellable work, and to be able to make money. But that just has nothing to do with what I'm interested in. Yeah. And I know some people really do well here that way, especially people who are happy having a studio and working in one style for a long time. And many of them sell off island, and that works for them. But the way I work isn't about producing so much as making events, basically.
Right.
And so that needs, the other system, the one where you get grants to cover your expenses so that you can just make a something, and then it's gone usually, Yeah. And that I think that people who are working in that kind of traditional object-based mode also have challenges, but yeah, that's mine.
Okay, great. And your answer to the next question might be similar, which is what's holding you back from participating in or attending more creative and artistic activities?
And parenting, honestly. I don't want to, it's not that it's a bad thing, because I chose to be a parent and I love being a parent. And to some degree, that's how I ended up doing the Wild Art program, because it's my way to still be active through parenting. You know what I mean? But
it does take time.
It does. Well, it takes most of your life.
Yep, I remember. Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't regret it at all. But yeah, I do think after my kids have moved out or are completely independent or something, then I will have more time to do things.
When you think of arts and culture on Bowen, what person or place comes first to mind?
The Cove.
The whole Cove.
Yeah, it just, honestly, because that's where so many people are. And I think when I think of things that have been culturally significant, there are things usually that happen in the Cove, like Remembrance Day, community photos. I don't know, the Cove really is the hub.
Yeah.
Never mind Artisan Square and things like that. They're lovely.
That
but
great
they're
big
not the
picture
hub
of all of the Bowen Islanders in front of the library.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And
I don't know of any other community that has actually got a photograph of probably a significant proportion of the total island in one picture.
And we have many of them, because they took them when I was little, I remember.
Yeah.
So that's just,
Yeah, they've got them up at Phoenix, I think. They've got the whole...
Oh, really? I haven't seen them. Oh. I'm going to go look.
Maybe it
they have Bowen Babies at Phoenix.
No, they have Bowen Baby. Where
But
did I see? Because I know there's been several of those. And
yeah,
they do them every 5 years or every
something
10
like
years or
there's
something
some
like that.
schedule, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of, for me, art is not about, visual artists or musicians or anything like that specifically. It's just about people getting together and being creative,
Yep.
you know.
So you don't think we have
So
a cultural icon, a person who epitomizes
a person?
arts on arts and culture and
No.
Bowen?
People come to mind who I feel like I should say, because I'm grateful for the work they've done, like Hans Behm or, people like that. But I think the nature of art is
Yeah.
the diversity that we all
Yeah.
are,
Sure. Okay.
Sorry,
No,
that's
that's
not
fine.
much of an answer. Hey?
No, that's a perfect answer. Culturally, what do you think most differentiates us from Vancouver? And I'm sure you could probably talk about that for hours. But
Well, I think there's a lot more space to be introspective.
Mhm.
Which doesn't have to mean reclusive. I think that introspection is often where the, the greatness of our social interactions comes from,
Right. Yeah.
having been somewhere else, as opposed to the constant buzz of town,
Mm-hmm. But it gives you space to kind of reflect and be who you are instead of always being in those different roles.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. And in terms of our culture, what's changed the most since you arrived? Since you've been here pretty well all your life, I guess, have you?
I went away for 7 years.
Yeah. So.
Population. I think it was 800 when I was a baby. I don't know because I was a baby, but
Right.
Honestly,
other things that you think are different from when you were a child?
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid to say this because I feel people would be offended. But
don't say it if you don't feel comfortable saying.
Well, I feel like I need to be honest. Anyway.
You've never shied away from that.
No, I have serious issues with feeling like I haven't told the whole truth. So here it is, okay?
All right.
The whole truth is I feel like we have a problem with gentrification. And I'm also part of that because my parents came here at a time when a whole bunch of other people did also. Mm-hmm. And I think they were officially part of the homesteader wave of people or something like that. Right. There have been these waves of people, so I'm as guilty as everybody else for overpopulating the island. But I do feel absolutely in the last 10 years or so, maybe 15 even, that it's 2016, 15 or 20 years. Sorry, life goes by much faster than I expect sometimes. That there are more people who are here expecting it to be more like a Vancouver suburb than seeing it for, something unique. And especially in my work with wild art, I take people out into the wilderness all the time. And there is almost never a child who hasn't been out with me before who is comfortable in the woods. And that's shocking to me. When we were kids, we were all comfortable in the woods. That's where we played. And the kids that I take out become comfortable in the woods pretty quickly. But when they get there, they aren't sure what to do. And they don't, it's like a whole generation of people now is waiting to have something else given to them instead of appreciating and knowing the place we actually live already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, sorry, that's not very positive.
No, but I'd like you to elaborate a bit on it if you can. People are waiting for things.
Well, in terms of, I think it's actually that people expect to have somebody else give them what they need in life. whether it's whatever recreational resources or I don't know, even a job,
Yeah.
that kind of that there's this feeling that somebody owes you something, that if the power goes out, BC Hydro really should get it fixed. And if it's not
Yeah.
fixed now, that's a problem. Why are we last priority?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see things that way. And I appreciated when I was young that there were a lot of other people who didn't see things that way, and that we generally, it's not really about being, how do I say this? The reason I'm nervous to talk about this is that a lot of people have told me that I'm just arrogant and,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, you have a well, so it doesn't matter to you if such and such happens, if we have a problem with the water system, but they really should fix the water system. And I think, but to separate yourself from all the things that provide for you, like your water system,
Right.
it just takes away so much from our own value,
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm being really vague because there are so many small issues where it comes up, but it's in everything where everybody expects to be provided for,
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to see how they can provide for themselves. And
in transition, which is the group that I work with, the transition thing, it's all about resiliency.
Yeah.
And resiliency, to some extent, requires a degree of autonomy and self-sufficiency. And we are so caught up in this global, interconnected economy now that most people, they think somehow if they grew their own food that they'd be self-sufficient and autonomous. And they don't realize that everything that they do in their lives is inextricably tied up with and dependent upon other people providing stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah. And so then there's this idea
solar
that if
panels.
so if you're going to go off grid, then you're completely self-sufficient.
Yeah,
but
right.
the thing is, if you're self-sufficient, what are you going to do socially? Like, what happens when you have a problem and you need a neighbor?
Exactly.
And I just, it's a social issue, but it's also such a personal issue. I mean, I think that we're weak. I've become weak too. There are so many ways where it's so much easier to depend upon the systems that are being put in place for us.
Right.
That I don't have to make the effort to provide for myself. And then I feel like I can't, or I feel like I don't have any value or any strength.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is that you end up with this lower sense of self-esteem and ability.
Mm-hmm.
So you become somewhat incapacitated by the fact that you can't fend for yourself.
Yeah.
And that affects everything that you do. It cows you. It makes you afraid to do things.
And that feeds the problem.
Yeah.
Because then we have a whole population feeling weak and afraid. And, if there's a pending problem, I can't think of an example right now, but they might give us a smaller ferry or something. There's panic because everybody doesn't know what to do, and what are we possibly going to do? We're going to fight. Make them fix it for us.
Yeah.
We could have a completely different boat. We could have a different way of living if we just decided to. But we're so stuck in this fear of, well, what will we do if such and such isn't there for us anymore? That there's no means to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people who've actually said the best thing that could happen to Bowen Island would be if the ferry doubled their fees and half the service.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
But they weren't willing to have that said on the camera.
I'm willing to say it on camera. I've actually said on the forum, which is the most dangerous place to say it. Wouldn't it be great if we just had like 2 runs a day?
Yeah.
That would be really great. We would only leave the island if we had to. And there would be fabulous new systems in place that people would come up with on their own.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'd probably get a boat instead of a car
Yeah.
because that would be much more useful to me.
Right.
You know? And
All right.
yeah.
Is there a particular type of artistic or cultural activity you'd like to learn more about?
I read that one on the list and I couldn't think of anything.
You've
I love
done it
learning.
all.
No, I haven't. I just love learning stuff, but there's nothing I'm, seriously questioning
All
right now.
Tell me about printmaking. How did you learn about that? It's a good
In school.
good place to put it in.
School.
I didn't even know you went to school.
Oh yeah. I went to the Royal Academy in Holland.
Oh, wow.
And the first day of my first time there, I was in second year. I had never been to any art school before because I'd done advanced placement art here. Mm-hmm. So they looked at my portfolio when I applied there and said, oh, well, it looks like you've done advanced placement art, so we'll just put you in second year. I said, are you kidding me? That was one class. But I'll take it, sure. So they put me in second year, and the first class I had was printmaking. I had never seen anything other than, from afar, I had seen people doing silk screening in high school. That was it. Yeah. I didn't know anything about printmaking. Mm-hmm. And everybody in the class, of course, had been doing it for a whole year already.
Right.
So we were just there. There was no instructor. There was nobody at all other than a couple people who had also showed up for mm-hmm. class that day. You didn't really have to show up for all the classes if you didn't want to, so there were only a couple people. And they showed me how to use the machines. Basically, I was completely hooked.
Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing when you get someone who will show you instead of tell you how to do something.
Yeah, there was no teacher. It was just people going, well, this is how I'm doing mine. I don't know what you want to do.
We learn by doing.
Yeah. And so everything I did was experimental, and it still is. I'm not those printmakers who do it because you can make 100 of the same thing. I do it because I can make it 100 different ways.
So what is it about printmaking that particularly appeals to you?
It's so surprising, and there's so much to discover in every single time you make a print. There is a very technical process to go through, and if I were technically minded and really wanted to, I could very carefully and meticulously produce the same thing many times, like I was saying. Mm-hmm. But that just doesn't appeal to me, and I really love things that are open-ended and explorative. So printmaking can be that, because mm-hmm. you never know what it's going to be like when you run it through. Right. So you can experiment again and again and again, and then and not just, I have an etching press, so mm-hmm. I do intaglio etching and monoprints and stuff with that press.
Right.
But printmaking is all over the place. It's in nature. It's in our homes. It's everything we do, right? It's basically any impression that's left by anything.
Yeah.
And an impression left by anything is like a mystery and a clue, and it's so deep and interesting just as an idea. So I love that. Anyway, did that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the most artistic statements I have heard.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Printmaking is one of the things I do, but I could probably say the same thing about almost everything I do. If I love it, that's why I love it.
It's the idea of the impression, the ambiguity of the term even. My family has been in the printing business for many, many years, doing all kinds of different stuff. So the idea of impression, I never even thought of the term impression and its multiple meanings and what its etymological origin is. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. What would you most miss if you had to leave Bowen?
My parents. My brother. He might leave with me if I left, but the whole reason I'm here is because my family's here. Honestly, I love Bowen. I did grow up here. I would probably, if it wasn't for my family, be in a much smaller place now because of what I was talking about earlier with the changes that are here.
Right.
Even Gambier or something, Gambier, I think, is more like Bowen when I was a child than Bowen is now.
Right.
Or, some other remote island with good drinking water.
Great. Last question is, are there other things that you think we should think about when we're putting together the cultural plan, things that the community needs, interesting ideas, any other things that we should.
Inclusiveness.
Okay.
I didn't even think about that before. I couldn't come up with an answer to that when I read through the questions, but that it occurs to me now after talking to you that I think it's a tragedy when art becomes about artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think all art should be completely open. It should be open in terms of who does it, who can access it, who is involved with it, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing.
It's fascinating that the tension between that idea, which I've heard a number of times before, and what has been expressed by other professional artists, which is you don't realize how much work, how much effort, how much pain you have to go through to become a professional artist. So when we use the statement, we are all artists, they just bristle at that. They just say, no, we're all creative, but we're not all artists. You have, until you've paid the dues.
Oh, yeah.
You can't call yourself an artist. And they're right as well. That's true.
I am in
well
both worlds.
Exactly.
I so get it.
But there's such a tension there. It's almost like,
Yeah.
how do we find a happy place that can accommodate both of
I don't know that we
those
can.
worldviews?
Honestly, I mean, other than many things happening in the same place simultaneously, where some people feel excluded from some things, but there's other stuff going on, I honestly, it changes so much. That whole issue is kind of a big deal to me, although I don't do anything about it because I feel like there's no answer,
Right.
But like I feel by far the most important work I do is installations and, well, wild art also, but say in more traditional art forms is the installation kind of stuff, which I pay to do, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stuck some landscapes in shows before. And somebody once, no, not somebody, I think 3 people during one of the landscape shows actually said to me, wow, I didn't realize you were a real artist, when they saw this painting of trees. Yep. And I thought, well, this means nothing to me. It's a nice painting of trees. Sure, I'm glad I did it. There's nothing wrong with it. But this painting does not make me an artist, I felt like I was more an artist when I was doing an installation that I felt was deeper, And that's just my personal opinion. Right. But then, musically, there's this huge divide between the people who want to make money with their work and the people who don't.
Right.
I go up every year and I sing in Princeton, which is a traditional music festival. We don't get paid. We get a couple of meals covered and our camping fees. And it is so rich. That is everything that music is about to me. I listen to people from really, really accomplished, professional artists who really make money elsewhere, to people like me who make no money anywhere singing, and really, honestly, I'm not a good singer, good in terms of able to create the kind of perfection of voice and everything that people can do. Mm-hmm. I'm not like that. I will tell anybody I'm practically tone deaf sometimes, but we're sharing music. And it is fabulous. And we sing all day and all night long. And we watch each other on various stages and, sing in the river and sing on the stage and sing in the house. And it's so rich for me. And yet, I know people who are offended by the fact that they would be expected to play for free if they played there. And I think that's so sad. I love that people can be paid for singing, but I just don't think that that's always what defines whether you've made it or not, or whether,
right.
I don't know. It's such a huge problem.
It's that same struggle, that
yeah.
they say in business that you can always decrease your prices, but you can never increase them. Yeah. So that if you're giving stuff away for free, then that blocks you from then saying, oh, my stuff is worth $1,000 for this painting.
Yeah.
Well, but you did one a couple of years ago, and you just gave it away. So how
Yeah.
can you possibly charge $1,000 now for the painting?
Yep.
Yeah, and so I understand where they're coming from. That divide, there's a reason
And you
behind
need to
it.
live.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, as an artist, meaning visual, because I can make money visually, because I've tried really hard, I am asked probably 20 or 30 times a year to make someone's website for free, to make their logo for free,
Yeah.
and I've offered to. When it's my friend who's starting a business, I say, I'll make you a logo, no problem. I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
But we are expected to do everything for free.
Mm-hmm.
And people have actually also literally said to me, well, you're an artist, isn't this what you do? And
Yeah.
I say, well, yeah, but it doesn't always have to be free,
Exactly.
Or how about if I trade you? I'll bring you a sandwich and you make me a logo. And I think that's really nice. Bring me a sandwich. And then I'll go make your logo for about 30 hours, know? And I don't begrudge those people. And many times it's an organization I totally support and I'm happy to do it. But I can totally see why musicians don't want to go play for free, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I go play for free because they're my friends and I'm having the most fabulous time of my life. I'm not playing because somebody wants me to play, to get something for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think both of those things are always happening.
Yeah, this whole idea of the sharing economy, artists kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. They get it to some extent, but also they feel in many cases that it's just another way of asking them to give stuff and not get in return.
I have some experience with the sharing economy because my daughter was hugely into it, and we were also very involved with Occupy, and I thought, well, I am going to offer wild art for free. One summer I did this. I did a camp for free. And I said, if you feel moved to give me whatever you feel like, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine too. And frankly, there are a bunch of people who are always, who often put their children in my programs for free because I offer them. And most of them would never ask me, but I phone them when I see a good opportunity and I say, hey, would so-and-so like to join this program because I think he'd love it or I think she'd love it. And sometimes they say, oh, no, we can't, or oh, we'll take something or something, because people, especially people who have very little money, are unwilling usually to take charity. But when I'm giving, I feel great about it.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
when people say, we just bought a boat, we don't have much money, so can we just not pay you this time? Then I kind of feel like, I didn't buy a boat,
Yeah. All right,
Sorry,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we'll wind it up at this stage, and I'm going to get some of your thoughts in terms of a debrief on what we